Welcome to our 30 for 30 virtual environmental seminar. We're having 30-minute conversations with some great doers and thinkers like Kate in celebration of 30 years of the Outdoor Academy. If you don't know much about us yet, OA is a semester high school program for 10th and 11th graders who want to take control of their learning, connect with the outdoors, and feel the support and responsibility of living in community with others. For 30 years, we've been challenging lives as part of the broader Eagle's Nest Foundation, where our mission is experiential education for young people, promoting the natural world and the betterment of human character. Our integrated focus curriculum has introduced nearly 1,400 alums to rich topics in the environmental humanities for 3 decades. And throughout April, we're continuing that tradition with an exploration of craft, community, environment, and intellect with this speaker series, drawing on the experiences of some of the best in the business. If you missed our earlier conversations with Noam, Dawn, who's on here tonight, or with Bill McKibben, please check out the Outdoor Academy's YouTube channel, where we're uploading all the recordings from this series. Today, I am thrilled to be chatting with my friend Kate Stephenson. Hi, Kate.
Jesse.
Kate co-founded Helm Construction Solutions to promote better business practices and inclusion in the trades. Kate is an experienced leader in the fields of green building, professional education, sustainability, and business management. And her work focuses on triple bottom line metrics, better business systems, and planning for a dynamic and resilient future. Kate's worked for decades in organizational and network management, including leadership positions at Yestermorrow Design Build School and with the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association. And she's also helped develop NESEA's Building Energy Bottom Lines program. Kate's a senior fellow in the Environmental Leadership Program, where we met in 2008 as fellows of the New England Regional Network. Also a member of local Energy Advisory Committee in Montpelier, Vermont, and serves on the board of NESEA and the Studio for High Performance Design and Construction. That's a lot. Kate, you're doing so much. Kate is also one of the most community-minded people that I know, expressing care and genuine commitment to others through an impressive investment of time. I really mean that, Kate. Whether penning a handwritten letter, I've received several of those, crafting a repurposed sweater into a stuffed animal for a child, or meeting up for a long-distance Nordic skate session on New England rivers. Kate understands that real change takes time, and she's never shy about investing that time, and that real change takes the right tools. So how apt that you're working in the trades. Tell us, what is the connection, Kate, between climate and construction?
Great question, Jesse. Thanks. Basically, the work that I'm doing and the work that I've really been doing for my whole career is kind of trying to find this intersection between the world of construction and the climate crisis, right? And I know not all of you are coming from a construction background, but 40% of our carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions come from the construction industry, which is kind of disgusting when you start thinking about it. And so, we are really interested in how do you kind of attack climate change through the world of construction. And the way that we've decided to do that is working with small business owners who run small construction companies to help them support their business systems, to help them make the projects that they are building more sustainable, and to bring in the next generation of workforce that we need to build more housing, and all the things that we need. So that's really where we focus, is at this intersection of business resilience and climate justice.
And you're saying that's you all at Helm. Tell us how Helm developed. Why did you get into this business of supporting so many small businesses?
Right. Well, it's you mentioned a bunch of things in your intro, but right in the start of my career, I was really interested in nonprofit environmental sector, and I ended up at the Yestermorrow Design Build School. where I stayed for 13 years. And that was really a place where we were teaching folks, mostly adults, how to build and design their own homes. And through that, I got to work with lots of architects, lots of really creative builders, woodworkers, permaculture experts, just folks in all different aspects of this design and construction world. And through meeting all of them, I realized that, even if we can once we can figure out all this technical stuff, like we figured out how to do heat pumps, we figured out how to do super insulated walls, we figured out, different building materials and building systems. And a lot of those small businesses that were on that leading edge, the cutting edge of construction, were struggling to survive. They didn't know how to price their jobs. They weren't getting enough business. We often say that in construction, we have a lot of accidental business owners, right? Like most people go into construction because they love working with their hands, swinging a hammer, and they don't really want to sit behind a computer making estimates. And so we just discovered that, like, if the sustainable building industry was going to be successful, we had to be able to teach people some core business skills and really support the development of their business. And so that's, really my work at Yestermorrow kind of led into the founding of Helm, which was 10 years ago. And at the beginning, we started here in Vermont. We had a handful of clients that were local construction companies that were kind of in our network. And never in a million years did we expect that now we would be 17 people on our team in states all across the country running a totally virtual construction consulting company. But that's kind of how it started, was really just seeing the need, the small business owners who trying to figure out how to do the right thing. And we created Helm really to dive in. And when people say business consulting, I'm always like, what does that mean? It means something like, McKinsey or some big corporate thing coming in,
right?
Which is not what we do, right? We really work hand in hand with small business owners on all kinds of different things, from figuring out your bookkeeping system to how to help you hire people, how to plan and vision for your company, how to, budget things, how to do good estimates, how to sell, the importance of the work that you're doing and find the right clients. So, we get to, that's one of the fun things about what we do, is that we get to work at this very high level. We get to do the 30,000-foot strategic planning and visioning. And then we also get to get right in the weeds and troubleshoot QuickBooks, and really get in, work on a construction schedule with your project manager. So that's kind of part of the fun of it, is that you get to do a little bit of a lot of different things working with.
Right. Well, I've heard you talk about it as going from this kind of consulting approach to a coaching approach. And the way that you're talking about it now really does suggest that, in a lot of ways that maybe it's a little bit more democratic, but really that it's what people needed. It's not that every solution, I mean, like you said, the technical solutions are kind of figured out in a lot of ways. There's probably plenty of room for innovation in building materials and renewable energy and energy saving design and sustainable sourcing of materials. All this thing, there's plenty of room for innovation, but a lot of the systems have been figured out. What really strikes me is not just that you're trying to help folks navigate the small business piece, but that these small business owners are lone operators a lot of the time. That even if they have a small crew, even if they have a small staff, that they are lone operators and they're really operating in a very specific place. And so their payroll is local. They are buying things from regional and local distributors. They are operating in a very place-based, so many construction outfits. And so again, that you are coaching folks to understand the technology, perhaps, or the materials, but mostly about how to make their businesses effective. It seems like a great way to adopt the kind of climate smart practices that the building industry needs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be just very isolating, right? Being a small business owner in any industry. but particularly in construction, and they're, other than sort of running into somebody at the lumber yard and saying, how's business, like there's not a lot of opportunities to talk to people about, what's working, what's not working. I mean, that you mentioned NESEA's Building Energy Bottom Lines program, which we started actually right before we started Helm, but that's really a peer network for builders and architects in the Northeast, and it's been just a total game changer. Just because I'm such a believer in that the peer network model, where you all of a sudden you get to hear from other business owners and you get to hear what's possible, and it could be like, oh, you guys offer health insurance? Like, how did you figure out how to do that? Or oh, you're using this, new material of gravel, it's foam glass insulation, like, tell me, like, what's the deal with that? And so it can cover all kinds of topics, but getting those people in a room together just to share what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, is amazing. And then Helm, we kind of have this great bird's eye view over all these companies, right? We work with hundreds of different companies all across the country. And so we get that opportunity to kind of see the best practices and say, oh, look at this software is working great, or you should try this, and then kind of share out those best practices to our whole network, which is that's what accelerates the change, right? The change that we need to see in this whole industry is people need to see examples of other people doing it. And they need to have some trusted resources, and that's where the consultants come in to be able to kind of advise them, help make decisions.
Well, I see a corollary, or I've seen it in nonprofit management in the past as well, too, where I was always keenly interested in the opinions of those foundation associates, those folks who were at grant-making organizations, not just because they might,
all the different things,
right. They've seen what other people are doing out there, and they might not even have that much money on hand, or I might not be in a position to go get it, but those are people who I look at and say, you have to know so much of the work that's happening out there. And if those folks were doing their job well, I always found as a nonprofit leader that I could learn a lot by just reading those newsletters or talking to other people that they do fund to understand something about it. And I see you serving a pretty similar role. I'm thinking about what you said when we were chatting about this talk, about how the industry has changed a bit, and that you saw that reflected in the NESEA conference. You just got back, right? Say more about that. How things are different now than they were 10 years ago when you started building bottom lines.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely neat to be. I was telling Jesse, I've been going to this conference since 2002, which makes me feel a little old. But watching it evolve, and this, for many years, the sessions were just about like the latest technology and, what do you need to know about cold climate heat pumps? And I keep using that example because there were a lot of sessions about heat pumps. And this year, our theme for the conference was building the movement. And what ended up, we ended up having a lot of sessions really focused on community building, community engagement, stakeholder engagement, how and we picked that theme a year before, not even knowing what was going on in sort of the political climate, but it felt very a real good choice for where everyone was at. And so we've really been thinking about, the conference was just a great example of how, in a lot of ways, the conversation has moved beyond the how, what kind of insulation or how much insulation, or, all of those wall assembly details and things like that. And it's we're able to talk about not just the what, but like, how are we doing as businesses? Why are we doing it? And how are we doing this in a way that is supportive of all the people that work with us, both the manufacturers, the installers, the crew, the clients, the community. I mean, there's so many different people that touch our industry. And so yeah, it's just really great to be able to see those kinds of conversations happening
Yeah.
in this kind of group where we're talking about, neurodiversity in the trades. We're talking about anti-racism. We're talking about building company culture and
Yeah.
how important those are in addition to the technical stuff.
What a marked shift, because yeah, and as we talked about it, it occurred to me that there's such a proliferation of information out there. You can get a hold of the technical information from whatever you're reading online, or from the literature you can collect from the people who do this kind of thing. And so I do wonder if people are hungrier for those kinds of coaching connections about culture than they are for the technical specs. Well, we
Mhm.
can try that on the job site, but we don't get to have these conversations about company culture, or about how our work is advancing climate smart
Mhm.
future, or about inclusion. And one of the things I really love about the work that you're doing at Helm is that you front inclusion for women, trans, and non-binary folks in the trades as a
Mhm.
workforce solution, for sure, but also because it's the right thing to do for a climate smart future. I want to just read a quick list of the recent events you've hosted from Helm, if I can, because it gives a real weight to both of these trends: the technical needs of small businesses and the inclusion and culture. Construction business basics, of course, people should be taking that class. Building science symposium, but then you also have a meetup for women, trans, non-binary folks in the construction and design trades at the big regional conference in Seattle last week. You're doing a session on purpose-driven sales, and you also have trades meetup with Vermont Works for Women's this week, or was it yesterday? When was
It's
that?
happening right now.
Is happening?
Well,
Oh no, you're
5 to
gonna be.
7 in Brattleboro. Yeah.
If you're in Brattleboro, pop over. But also these affinity groups that you've built, again, creating those cohorts of folks to share information, and some of it is specific to that trade and experience, like architects. And I see you doing one for folks in recovery from any substance.
Yeah.
Why is it that fronting this work of inclusion is so important to what you're doing at Helm and to the industry?
Mhm. Well, I think it's pretty common knowledge that we have this huge workforce shortage in the
Mm.
in the construction trades, right? Like people are aging out, not enough young folks are coming in. So like that in itself, just to build everything we need to build is a challenge. And then you look and you say, okay, only 4% of people on job sites are women. Like we're missing 50% of the population here.
Yeah.
And never mind, nobody's tracking trans and non-binary and all of those kinds of statistics, but it's very small. So part of it is really there's just, to find the people we need to open the door and invite everyone in.
Mm.
Um, and it's not just gender diversity. We're talking about ethnic diversity. We're talking about, language access in our trades. We want BIPOC folks in the trades. Um, you know, we need to just open the doors as wide as we can and
Mm.
invite those people in. And when they get there in a very male, cis white male dominated industry, it's not always the most welcoming place, right?
Yeah.
And so it's very, a lot of those folks who are interested and come in, they're it's not uncommon to be the only woman on the job site or the only trans person on the job site, the only Spanish speaker on the job site. Um, at least in New England. I think in other parts
Yeah.
of the country that may be different. But and so these affinity groups, these circles that we create, they're the trades meetups. It's really all about kind of creating support and connection and community for those folks who often feel like I'm the only one. Um, and by creating connection, even if it's in outside of your own company that you're working for, but
Mm.
with other people in the region, in the area. Um, it we believe that that will increase retention and that it will help folks stay in the work. Because like if you talk to my colleagues at Vermont Works for Women, they'll say, we train a ton of women to come into the trades and very few of them stay.
Hmm.
There are a lot of reasons why they don't stay, but we want to try to up that percentage for retention.
Yeah.
And creating community and providing, the courses, the training and support so that people feel like they understand what their job is and they know what's expected of them and how to do the job. Like that's another strategy, right, to keep people in and offer them a path to promotion
Right.
and advancement.
Yeah, and I was thinking in an industry where there are so many small teams and individual or lone practitioners, like having those connections across the field creates mobility for folks
Yeah.
who might not otherwise feel like they have an opportunity to advance within their team. But knowing that there is a network of folks out there doing this where it creates opportunities, I think for retention, even if it's not your own company.
Some of those great meetups where we have everyone go around in that circle and we have maybe 25 or 35 people and introduce yourselves and like, I don't know, I'm an electrician apprentice, or I've been doing carpentry for 30 years and getting ready to retire. And we have had a number of people already in these that have switched jobs or have said, I'm working here and it's not so hot. I'm looking for something else, right? And like, so being able to kind of do a little matchmaking and we want to help companies retain their employees and work with them if they're willing to work on it, right? Work on company culture, work on, it's working with the whole rest of the team to make it a welcoming workplace. And if it's not a great work environment, then I want to help those women and trans folks find a place that is safer for them.
Yeah. Find the right
and
place
we can do that with our
work.
network. Yeah.
Yeah, and people might not be able to see that otherwise, really. I mean, I see that in small organizations all the time where you're so committed and so consumed at times by the work that you don't see the opportunities that are nearby. And I think most good employers will be happy to see somebody succeed well enough to go on to do the next good thing.
And you just don't even know what's possible, right? It's like if you've been working at the same place for 10 years, you just think that's the norm. And so that's another part of the whole network aspect that I love is just, it's like, seeing it could be different, it doesn't have to be this miserable.
I know you shy away from me calling you an educator, but I think you're an educator in the way that I think of myself as one, and that is really to facilitate this kind of growth for people and this understanding that there's great work to do with your hands and you're very capable and you can do amazing things, but also that there are people around you that can support you. It's why I love what we do at the Outdoor Academy. I think that young people are just coming into their own agency. They're certainly identity formation at this phase in their lives at 10th and 11th grade in high school, but also just a real sense of autonomy and agency. Like for the first time in their lives, they're really thinking about how they physically can do things, how they are developing this executive function to make plans and follow through and challenge themselves and do hard things. And I think that there are certainly corollaries to that in so many sectors and so many fields. But what I love about the way that you do your work is that you're focused on that community, you're focused on that cohort and those connections. And I think that's very similar to the kind of educational work that we're trying to do here. After a couple decades in the work, Kate, we know you've told us a little bit about how the conference has changed, but how are the fields changing in building science and trades and renewable energy as far as you can see from your perch? Where are the opportunities for other folks to contribute to some of that work as well?
I mean, I do think we were just talking about it the other day at another event, but like the trades are getting more technical, right? Like which it has its pluses and its minuses, right? Like there's more things to screw up, right? When you have a really tight building that requires mechanical ventilation that needs really good moisture management, because it's not just going to like be so leaky that it just dries out by itself, like our old houses do. And so it's, I think, a little bit more high stakes, but also there's so many different ways to get into this work that is not just swinging a hammer, but
Yeah.
I love swinging hammers, but like, whether it's being an energy auditor that's running blower doors and like crunching numbers, it's doing energy modeling, you know, all the really very specific craft trades. They are all evolving with the materials and the methods. And so, yeah, I mean, I do see the buildings that we're building now. I was at another panel last night and they were saying, like, basically net zero ready is the standard now, at least here in
Yeah.
Vermont. Like, that is what the energy code requires. And we know how to build these buildings. Is everyone doing that? No. We still have more education that needs to happen to get all the contractors to that level,
Sure.
to understand that that's a requirement. But yeah, it's like we know how to do it, and now the trick is training to get folks in the door and up to speed, and to
Yeah.
how to make those buildings work.
We need helm construction solutions. We need folks training people in those components of the work. Yeah, well, thank you so much for all those thoughts about the field. I again have seen you over and over in is it 17 years we've known each other now? That's a good long run.
Yeah.
Just commit so much of yourself to being present in the work that you're doing at the moment, and to connecting with people personally. I know that's like you just from your own personal value system about sharing food and sharing time and doing the thing together. But I see it expressed in your work, and I hope that that betterment of human character piece of our mission at Eagle's Nest Foundation, the Outdoor Academy, spins off more and more folks who have the kind of commitment you have to community and investment of time with the work that's in front of you and the people that you're engaged with. So thanks for spending those 30 minutes with us. We got a couple of questions, some from Tom Shea in Vermont. You know Tom?
I know Tom. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tom.
Tom's daughter Maya's on here too. Hi, Maya. Maya's from semester 58. So it's just here recently, last spring. Can you see Tom's question in the Q&A panel here, Kate?
No.
No. All right. Well, I'll read it to you if you're ready.
Oh, that's a whole other.
It's different than the chat. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
You see it now?
Yep. Should I read it out or?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear.
So this is from Tom. Hi, Kate and Jesse. I run a deconstruction company in Vermont, Deconstruction Works. Our goals include reducing waste through reuse. I've been working on very new builds recently. These are high-end houses that are being remodeled. Most of the time the floor gets changed. The floors are always glued, making material not salvageable. Is preventing a squeak really worth the trees? My real question is, are you working with builders to drive good, i.e. environmentally sensitive decision-making with their clients when it comes to project design? I am also an accidental business owner. So yeah, are we working with builders to help their clients make good decisions? Yes. I do think that is a piece of the work, particularly of our project management team, who are really kind of hands-on in the specific projects that our clients are building, where they're talking about things like material selection, really looking at embodied carbon of those materials. So we've been doing a lot with this new tool called the BEAM calculator, which is to help folks figure out the different embodied carbon impacts of different material choices. So, and then we've always really been focused on local. I mean, this is tied to the embodied carbon, but sourcing as many local materials as possible to support the local economy, but also just to reduce the miles traveled and everything like that. So I hear you, Tom, about gluing down the flooring. I don't I don't love that. But the work that you're doing to get all of those things out of the waste stream is amazing. And we send people to deconstruction works all the time.
Tom also said in the chat that you could encourage VT Works for Women folks to go
Yeah.
deconstruction works way. So
Yep.
I'm sure there's some overlap there already.
Mhm.
Deanna asks, how can a homeowner apply some of these values to our home construction and renovation projects, especially for one-time projects? Very much related to Tom's question, I think.
Mhm. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do that as a homeowner, and so, yeah, we were just talking about materials, but I mean, one thing that I often encourage people is also, yeah, when you're thinking about who to hire for a contractor, really looking at, can you support a women-owned business or a minority-owned business and hire them? They can often be harder to find for sure. And we have we have a shortage of contractors. So but that is something to be thinking about when you're hiring I mean, even asking the folks about their hiring practices, trying to think of other things that a homeowner should be thinking about. I mean, just in general, building science, right? Which is just it's kind of the modern way of how do we build energy efficient buildings. Um, Anyone that I was hiring to do renovations on my house, I would want to be asking about their experience with that, right? Because like I said before, there's a lot of ways to create problems, especially in old houses.
Yeah, when you
So
tighten up old houses.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. um, So it's not to say that we shouldn't tighten up old houses. We should and we need to weatherize millions of homes. But I would want to make sure that I was hiring a contractor who had some experience working with those kinds of projects and
Yeah.
wasn't just going to kind of run in and slap some spray foam on everything and call it good.
Yeah. Well, I think it's certainly related when you start talking about adhesives and the off-gassing of materials in a home as well. And you probably get better adhesives when you're not just throwing whatever glue is available cheapest. So if you're paying attention to some of those things. Another question that we have, I think, was a good one to end our time on. Wonder if you can offer us some examples of those inclusive business practices that you're working on to make the trades more exclusive or more inclusive. What's some examples of what you've seen out there?
Mhm. A lot of different examples. I think one piece that we focus on in just putting some attention to the hiring process,
Mm.
um, because a lot of times, like the getting your foot in the door as a apprentice carpenter who's maybe from one of those underrepresented identities, can be real tricky because there's a lot of kind of the old boy network and this like word of mouth, right? Like, oh, I know Joe's buddy and we went to high school together and like they hired me. And a lot of times construction companies are not even like posting their jobs anywhere. It's very word of mouth. And so one thing that we really encourage is be more transparent about your hiring practices. Um, Put it out there. And if you are open to hiring women and people of color and trans folks, like we actually put that in a job post because
Yeah.
that's an indicator to someone to say, oh, okay, these people care about this, and maybe I'm going to think about applying. And I've seen that be really helpful and successful in the
That's
companies that I
great.
work with. Um, but it's not just about hiring, right? Like I said before, it's like you can bring people in the door, but if they don't stick around, you're wasting everybody's time. So a lot of the work that we do is really, we'll go in and do trainings with companies with their whole crew to talk about company culture, to talk about communication style, talk about leadership. What does leadership look like on a job site? And it's really, in some cases, trying to break down these historical ideas around like toxic masculinity, basically, and like how people were brought up in construction, that they had to be the boss and they had to yell at people and they had
Yeah.
to make rude comments, and that was just the thing that everybody did on the job site. So it's really, and that's not a one and done thing where we just come in and run a workshop for an hour and then solve this problem, right? It's our lifelong work. But
Yeah.
but just getting people, asking people how they feel about what they do and their work. Um, getting people to talk to each other, like it's not that common in this construction industry. But those are some of the strategies that we do to get people talking and rethinking, I guess, what it looks like
Yeah.
to be a leader and work in this world.
Yeah, I love the idea of focusing on some of that hiring practice and what has traditionally kept people out of the loop. And if you're not known, how would you know to apply for the job? Ruthie asks another question here about whether or not there's some particular kind of an accreditation or a certification that really emphasizes inclusivity in the building trades in the way that a LEED certification does for building science or sustainable building.
Yeah. There's one that we work with a bunch. It's called the Just label, and it's a third-party certification program that's run by the International Living Futures Institute. So it's a lot of architects, but there's also contractors and builders. I wouldn't say it's very common yet, but it's kind of, you do a self-assessment around these different social justice and equity indicators. And then it gives you it looks like a little nutrition label for your business. You can see one on our website, but so that's been one program that we use. And we have a few companies that have also gone through B Corp certification, which is a huge undertaking. Most small businesses are not really in a position to tackle something like that. But if you found a construction company that was a B Corp, that would be a great indicator. That they're doing the right things.
Yeah. Katie has put the Living Future Just program in the chat there, so y'all should link to that before we get to closing that chat window. If you want,
I know. And here in Vermont, we have something called Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility, and that's across all kinds of different sectors and industries. But I know there's one in New Hampshire, and so I don't know how that translates to the rest of the country, but that might also be a place where that's more sort of self-identified, right? That you're not having to pass a test to be a business for social responsibility. But if you are a member of an organization like that, it probably says something about your values and what you feel like is important.
Well, what I gather from this chat, Kate, is that a more inclusive trades is a climate solution, in part because it increases the adopters. It increases the number of people who can then access the kind of technical information, the technical skills, and the cultural capacity to advance that work for better adoption of climate smart practices in building. And we need as many workplaces that are doing that as we can get. So thanks for doing the good work at Helm and all the other ways that you do that good work. And thanks for joining us here.
Thanks, Jesse.
I've really enjoyed it. I want to tell folks before we hang up that we have one more of these wonderful Wednesday environmental seminars next week with Jim Merkel. We'll really be focused on his recent film, Saving Walden's World. Walden is Jim's son. And really, the movie is focused on women's leadership and sustainable communities around the world. He focuses on Kerala, India, and a community in Slovenia, and on Cuba, really as a way to highlight where women are empowered, more sustainable choices seem to be at the fore. And so please join us if you are able to, if you've gotten our emails, Jim has kindly shared a free link to screen the movie in advance. So if you haven't registered yet, please do look for that email link to watch the movie before we talk next Wednesday, and we hope to see you there. If you are in the area and you're able to make it, this coming Saturday is OA's 30th anniversary. We've run 60 semesters over 30 years, and a lot of alums and former faculty from those times will be here on Saturday. You can learn more about the Outdoor Academy online. You can learn about our Eagle's Nest camp there too, but we hope that you'll come visit us in person. So make sure, Kate, when you're in the Blue Ridge Mountains, you come through Brevard, Pisgah Forest, and the Outdoor Academy.
Definitely will.
If I don't see you down here first, I'll find you in Vermont.
Good.
All right, stay going. Thanks y'all for joining us.